Donald Trump doesn't just make headlines, he commands them. And once again, he's dropped a bombshell on Truth Social, demanding that the Washington Commanders immediately change their name back to the Redskins. Not next year, not after a vote, right now. In a fiery post, Trump mocked the current name, calling the team the Washington Whatevers, and declared, "There's a big clamoring for this." He insisted the Redskins name should be brought back in full. But Trump wasn't done. He then turned his attention to baseball, taking a swipe at the Cleveland Guardians, urging them to return to their old name, the Indians. According to Trump, our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. And just like that, Trump ignited a firestorm, tapping into a cultural debate that never really went away. For his supporters, it was a call to restore tradition. For his critics, it was a tone-deaf move, drenched in political calculation. But either way, the timing wasn't random, and the backlash wasn't small. Trump ended the post with a blunt message to team owners everywhere. Get it done. But this isn't just about a football team's name. It's a calculated strike in a much bigger battle, one that Trump has been fueling for years. And if you think this was the first time he stirred the pot, think again. This wasn't Trump's first shot at the Commanders. In fact, his issue with the name change goes back years, long before they were officially rebranded. But like most things with Trump, his stance has always been layered with ambiguity and political heat. Earlier this year, when asked directly if the team should go back to the Redskins name if they returned to DC, Trump dodged the question. He didn't give a straight yes or no, but what he did say spoke volumes. "I think it's degrading to the Indian population," he remarked, flipping the narrative in a way only Trump can, arguing that not using the name Redskins was somehow the real insult. It was classic Trump, turning criticism into a weapon and reframing the debate on his terms. Even before the Commanders existed, Trump was vocal about sports teams giving in to what he calls woke culture. He slammed the name change as political correctness gone mad and positioned himself as a defender of heritage, a man standing up for what he claims millions of Americans still believe in. But it wasn't just about football. These comments weren't off the cuff. They were calculated, carefully timed to stir up cultural resentment, trigger the media, and solidify his grip on a base that sees tradition as under attack. And what happened next? It wasn't about Trump. It was about a team caught in the middle of a cultural war they never asked for. The name Redskins didn't just spark outrage overnight. This battle has been brewing for decades. Native American leaders, civil rights activists, and advocacy groups had long called it a racial slur, one that reduced their history, culture, and identity to a football mascot. They weren't asking for a favor. They were demanding basic respect. By the time the team finally rebranded in 2022, it wasn't a quiet shift. It came after years of protests, lawsuits, national debates, and pressure from sponsors threatening to pull millions in funding. FedEx, Nike, and PepsiCo weren't just watching from the sidelines. They made it clear. Either change the name or lose big money. Still, the backlash wasn't one-sided. Many longtime fans felt blindsided, believing their team's identity was being stripped away. For them, the Redskins name wasn't about race. It was about legacy, loyalty, and childhood memories. And that emotional tug of war made the controversy even harder to untangle. The team finally became the Washington Commanders, a new logo, a new look, a clean slate. But here's the thing. Even after the rebrand, the debate never truly ended, because what started as a name change had morphed into a national identity crisis, one that touched politics, race, freedom of speech, and the very idea of what it means to be American. And now, Trump's latest comments just ripped that wound wide open again. By 2022, the pressure had reached a boiling point, and Washington's NFL team had no choice but to act. After temporarily going by the name Washington Football Team, they finally unveiled their new identity, the Washington Commanders. It wasn't just a cosmetic shift. It was a deliberate, high-stakes pivot meant to put years of controversy behind them. New name, new uniforms, new branding, all carefully designed to signal a break from the past. But the rebrand didn't land the way the franchise had hoped. Critics slammed the new name as bland, corporate, and lifeless, lacking the fire and tradition that the Redskins name once carried, for better or worse. The reaction was mixed, and in some corners, downright hostile. Some fans felt alienated. Others simply refused to adopt the new identity. And behind all the marketing buzzwords, one truth was hard to ignore. The shadow of the old name still lingered. Internally, the Commanders tried to push forward, focusing on rebuilding the team, improving the stadium experience, and repairing public trust after years of scandal. But even as they looked ahead, the past kept pulling them back. The rebrand was supposed to settle the debate. Instead, it left a void, one that people like Trump are now trying to fill. And the silence from team ownership, that only added fuel to the fire. The reaction from fans was anything but united. For some, the Commanders' name marked progress, a long overdue correction that finally respected native voices and moved the franchise into the future. But for others, it felt like a betrayal, a forced erasure of something they'd loved their entire lives. Across forums, tailgates, and social media, arguments erupted. Some fans refused to buy the new jerseys. Others still wore Redskins gear proudly to games. A silent protest against what they saw as cancel culture gone too far. It wasn't just about football anymore. It had become a culture war. One side saw it as justice, the other saw it as surrender. And Trump knew exactly what he was doing when he waded into that fight. His Truth Social post didn't just call for a name change. It tapped into a larger frustration simmering beneath the surface. For many in his base, this was about more than a team name. It was about identity, heritage, and a belief that their values were being erased piece by piece. Trump's message wasn't just directed at the NFL. It was aimed at every American who feels like the world they grew up in is vanishing right in front of them. And the more the league stayed silent, the louder the anger grew. Trump didn't stop with football. His sights quickly turned to baseball as he pushed for the Cleveland Guardians to drop their new name and return to the Indians, a name retired amid similar controversy. In his Truth Social post, Trump claimed, "Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen." But here's the catch. There's no real data or official support backing this claim. Instead, it's another example of Trump using sweeping generalizations to fuel debate and deepen divisions. The Guardians' name change came after years of pressure from Native American groups who argued that Indians was just as harmful and outdated as the Redskins. The rebrand was meant to be a step forward, signaling respect and cultural sensitivity. But Trump's call to reverse that decision stirred up fresh arguments. Supporters of the old name saw his statement as a rallying cry. Critics viewed it as dismissive and tone-deaf. This move wasn't just about sports teams anymore. It was a way to keep cultural conflicts alive in the public eye. Trump was weaponizing nostalgia and controversy to maintain his political momentum. And as he dragged more teams into the fight, the question grew, is this really about honoring native voices or about igniting culture wars that never end? While Trump claims widespread support for returning to old team names, the reality on the ground is much different. Native American leaders and advocacy groups have been vocal and united in opposing both the Redskins and Indians names for years. Many tribal representatives emphasize that these names aren't just harmless traditions. They're symbols that perpetuate harmful stereotypes and disrespect centuries of history and culture. For them, it's not about politics or nostalgia to Saaktat, it's about dignity. Some earlier polls showed mixed opinions among Native Americans, but more recent surveys and statements from major organizations like the National Congress of American Indians make one thing clear. Most Native voices want these names retired for good. The name changes, they say, are steps toward healing and respect, not attacks on heritage. Despite this, Trump's messaging frames the issue as if Native Americans themselves are divided or even longing to reclaim these names. That framing oversimplifies and misrepresents a deeply nuanced and emotional topic. The truth is, the conversation around these names is about acknowledging past wrongs and moving forward, even if it means letting go of long-held symbols. And that message is often drowned out in the noise of political grandstanding and culture wars. Trump's demands aren't just about sports or tradition, they're part of a larger political playbook. Over the years, he's mastered turning culture wars into rallying cries that energize his base. By attacking team name changes, Trump taps into a deep vein of frustration among voters who feel alienated by shifts in society. For many, this isn't just about a name, it's about resisting what they see as a loss of identity and values. His Truth Social posts serve multiple purposes. They grab headlines, provoke emotional reactions, and create a sense of urgency, all while keeping him front and center in the culture war conversation. This strategy has proved powerful before, whether it's kneeling protests, cancel culture, or school curriculum debates. Trump uses symbolic flashpoints to mobilize supporters and dominate the news cycle. By pushing to bring back the Redskins and Indians names, Trump is rallying voters who see themselves as defenders of a fading America, a country they believe is being reshaped without their consent. And while critics call it divisive, Trump's base cheers him on, viewing these moves as a fight against political correctness and cultural erasure. In the end, these posts are less about football and more about power, using controversy to keep his movement alive and energized. Donald Trump's call to bring back the Redskins name isn't just about a sports team. It's a flashpoint in a much bigger cultural battle. On one side, there's a push for respect, progress, and acknowledging painful histories. On the other, a fierce defense of tradition, identity, and resistance to change. The Commanders' rebrand was meant to settle the debate, but Trump's latest post shows how these issues still ignite strong feelings that run far deeper than football. Whether you see Trump as a champion of heritage or a provocateur stirring division, one thing is clear. This fight over a name taps into raw emotions about who we are as a country and what we value most. As the teams stay silent and the public debates rage on, the question remains, is this about honoring the past or fighting for the future? What do you think? Should the Redskins name return, or is it time to move on? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear from you.